So Apple's big iPhone event is coming up next week on Tuesday, September 10th. And ahead of that, we're here just talking about some of the rumors that have been floating around about what might get announced on stage. This is all purely speculation or based on leaks, so we have absolutely no advanced knowledge of what's going to happen on Tuesday, which will become extremely clear if you watch this video after that date. What have you heard that's interest to you?
Well, I mean, when you get in the beginning of September, it's exciting times because next week, we're all going to know what the new iPhone is. We're going to have the new iPhone in the office, and fun to play with next round. And actually, this time around, it seems like most of what's going to be announced has actually been leaked in some capacity. So, like going into it, I think most people have like general grasp on like what they're expected to hear about, and I think. Building off last year when they announced 3 phones, right, for the first time, and I think they're going to do pretty much the same thing this year.
I forgot the XR was only 1 year old. It already feels like it's been like
time flies. Yeah. So this year, I think we're going to have again 3 phones. We're going to have. I think the rumor is that there's going to be different naming conventions this year. So instead of like the iPhone XS and XS Max and 10R, it's going to veer towards the kind of 11 Pro and then the 11 Pro Max.
But yeah, that's one of the big rumors of that they're going to go with the Pro naming convention, which is something I feel like I've heard people conjecturing is going to happen like the next release for like at least 3 or 4 years now. But I think it would make sense this time around, especially since like the iPhone 11 is a little bit like awkward. I wonder if they're going to like, because they already dropped the naming convention, right? Or I guess the XS was the S model half step. So this would be the iPhone 11?
Well, they screwed everything up like a couple years ago when they skipped over the 9, right? They had the 8 and then they went straight towards the 10, and everyone got confused that it was either called the 10 or the X or whatnot. And then last year they kind of doubled back and did the 10S and 10S Max.
I would be pretty surprised if the number/word 11 is part of any of the flagship iPhones, because it just feels so awkward to me.
Yeah, it just makes everything a little bit more confusing. But either way, that's what we're going to get, and cool.
Yeah, so definitely one of the big predictions going around of just like predictions, but it's also been part of the leaks, is that the lead feature is going to be camera focused, that they're going to go really in on the camera stuff, which I think is interesting. Well, actually, I don't know. I feel like that has been the sort of lead feature for a lot of phones recently, and for like the iPhone in the past even. I don't know. I'm interested to see if they can pull something out that seems clever. Like at this point, there's like megapixel increases.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. Like all smartphones these days, flagship smartphones has gotten like so good, and in many respects they're pretty identical. They all have like edge-to-edge displays and great camera systems that like it's kind of hard to differentiate. And so like I think most companies are going like hard on the features, and like what we've seen so far this year is that they're going to add a third camera system, an ultra-wide lens to the 11 Pro and 11 Pro Max, and then I think the rumors there are that the 10R or the 11, which I think they're going to just call like the budget option, which is still going to be kind of expensive.
Already confused.
Yeah. So the cheapest one, which if it's just the successor to the 10R, is going to be $750, and if you remember, that phone only has one lens, and they were able to pack a bunch of software, so it's still able to do like portrait mode and whatnot.
Yeah, because they do the higher end models of the iPhone do like the depth of field stuff by having 2 different cameras, and then the iPhone XR like fakes it with machine learning stuff, which is like the same thing that the Pixel 3 does, if I remember correctly. Yeah.
So so the cheap model, the 11, I'm going to call it, is going to have I think it's going to be a telephoto lens, and so that'll add an extra lens, and then the more expensive models, the 11 Pro and the Pro Max. Let's call them the Pro models. I think that's easier.
Yeah, that works for me.
Which I think most people are gonna probably get, which is weird because they're called Pros. But anyway, yeah, they're gonna adopt like a square camera system on the back. So instead of the vertical lens, it's gonna be a square, which is going to be unique, and it's going to be interesting to see if they actually have that like camera bump, so you can like lay it flat like this guy does. Like you can't
right. Yeah. And so that has the square form factor thing has leaked out a little bit because there are obviously if you've ever noticed before that like when a new iPhone comes out, there are cases to buy, like pretty much immediately. So like sometimes the iPhone shape stuff leaks out, and I believe that part of where the camera square is coming from is there have been cases around that have that big like square thing. Yeah. So yeah, I mean that'll be interesting. Like the ultra wide.
It's going to be interesting to like see how people use that and if it actually impacts. I mean the angle, the reason why you get the ultra wide end is obviously you get more of a wider lens, but it's also supposed to like get more light in, so you can take better like low light photos. And and I'm sure Apple packed in like a bunch of like software features to take advantage of it.
The rumor has it with the software stuff that like
how many times have we said rumor?
I don't know.
Rumor has it.
Smoke on the street. But I know there's been talk of like with the sort of like computational post, where the machine edits your photo for you after you take it, of like using the ultra wide lens to be able to like add people who were just out of the frame or some stuff like that, which that stuff's always interesting. But it's always like you kind of have to mess around for a little bit to see how good it is in practice. I think it's also rumored that there's going to be better low light enhancement or whatever, which I'm pretty excited about. I forget if it's called night vision, night light, whatever the low light feature on the Pixel smartphones.
It's a night sight.
Super cool. Is it really?
Night sight.
But that's been super cool. So I would love to see. I would love to see something like that. I would love to see whatever comes after that. Like if Apple can come up with something that is that cool and new. Like beyond that would be super cool, but I have no idea what that would be. But it's also not my job.
I think that what else that people can like potentially hope for with these new iPhones is, well, we've seen like a bunch of like Samsung's new phones have this like wireless power share and like a bunch of other features, including USB-C charging, which I think Apple's not going to abandon Lightning.
Yeah,
so,
me neither, but I really wish that they would.
So like the wireless power share, meaning you can like, it has like the reverse charging ability, so you can like turn it into a wireless charging pad and place like your AirPods or something on your iPhone and actually charge it that way, which would be neat. And we could, I don't know. Yeah.
Which, speaking of, there's also the rumors of a new set of AirPods, which
it's not going to come.
You don't think so?
No, not at all. Now, Apple just released their second generation AirPods, and if they're going to release some kind of like waterproof version of that sweatproof thing, which is kind of cool, but also I think that Apple owns Beats, and Beats just announced their own like sweatproof, the Powerbeats Pro. That's basically the sweatproof alternative. I mean, who knows?
It's true.
Maybe and they're just not gonna. They're gonna release.
What do you think about the active noise canceling aspect of it, though? Because like that's another part of the rumors, and I think that's interesting because the Sony's active noise canceling true wireless buds just came out. Bose's are coming out next year. So it seems like they would want to get in on that. I would say if they don't want to get their lunch eaten, but like AirPods have become so iconic that I don't think that they're in like.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I mean, Apple has no history in like active noise cancellation. And Apple kind of sticks to what they're good at and what they know how to make. And if anything, like Beats would probably come out with some like new models of their active noise canceling headphones instead of like, I don't know. It's a pipe dream for sure. I'd love like noise canceling headphones, noise canceling AirPods. But I think all those things like 2020 earliest. It would be interesting because Apple hasn't announced anything new with like the HomePod or any like new models of the HomePod since it was announced.
I actually
and people like
forgot about it.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily think they're going to announce a new HomePod, but it would also be like super cool for Apple to like open up that ecosystem and like they have like some kind of like Spotify integration and like have Siri work with Spotify, so like it wasn't just like closed off to Apple Music users.
Right.
And because I think most people like Apple users like the idea of a HomePod, but if they're not an Apple Music subscriber, yeah, then no dice.
Yeah, yeah, it's that sort of push and pull of like, is Apple, like, because yeah, Apple can use the HomePod to try to drive subscriptions to Apple Music, but at some point, that connection also like keeps people out of it. There's also a bunch of other, because I do think that it obviously won't just be the iPhone stuff. I think there's got to be something else there, either whether it's like a HomePod thing or the AirPods like we talked about. One of the other things is there's the 16-inch MacBook, which I would be surprised. The story there is the rumor is a MacBook that goes from, it's the size of a 15-inch MacBook, but with a 16-inch screen because the bezels are smaller.
Yeah, I think it would have like an OLED display too.
Yeah,
which is.
I would be surprised if that shows up on Tuesday.
Yeah,
I feel like, I don't know, have Macs and iPhones been on the same stage recently? I feel like they haven't, but I could be wrong.
I have to double check it. I mean, there have been events where they've announced new iPhones and new MacBooks, but I think this and then usually in October, Apple will have like an educational event where they announce like their new iPads and potentially MacBooks. But I think it's probably going to be too early for that. I think. I don't know, it'd be interesting. We're still yet to hear pricing on their new streaming service, Apple TV Plus.
Yeah, that's true.
And whether, and I don't think they've actually announced a pricing on Apple Arcade either, which is their gaming service that you need an actual Apple TV streaming box to use.
Right. Yeah.
So like if they announce like a next gen Apple TV 4K, I don't think it's necessarily going to happen. But who knows? They might release a new form factor, and so that could be kind of on the cards. Another big thing, which Apple usually announces, the hot ticket item other than the iPhones, is the Apple Watch, and so you can expect. We all expect a Series 5, but it's unclear exactly what the advantage is, how that's going to look, and because last year with the Series 4 is the first real big like update to the design of the Apple Watch since the Series 1, and so I think a lot of that is
I've heard
like
rumbling about
unknown.
Like titanium and ceramic cases, but it's unclear whether.
Yeah, also like sleep tracking potentially, but also. I don't know. It could be interesting, but from a sleep tracking perspective, like I've worn a lot of wearables, and I'm someone who just like takes all them off. Like when I go to bed, I don't like to sleep with anything on my wrist.
Yeah,
and so like
that's like pretty understandable.
Yeah, and you need to have it on your wrist when you sleep, obviously, if you want to track sleep tracking.
Yeah.
But
I meanwhile am like the opposite of that because I haven't worn a smartwatch in a while, but there was I'm a huge nerd, so there was definitely a while where I was like,
wait, you were a huge nerd?
No, I am a huge nerd. But there was definitely a while where I was pretty into the Pebble stuff and like trying to make that work. And I did wear it at night. In part because like the vibration alarm is great. Like
on your wrist, you'd like that like haptic feedback and just like
yeah. Well, because it was a great way if I was getting up early, I could like wake up early and set an alarm without disturbing my partner. But the thing with the Pebble is that it had the battery life that's like, it was like a week long or whatever.
Yeah, it's true.
The thing that is funny to me of positioning the Apple Watch as a sleep tracking device is like I feel like you need to have 72 hours charged.
Yeah, the Apple Watch battery
like,
is notoriously like it's like a day and a half for me right now, and at max. And if you were wearing it at night, it'd be a whole nother thing to consider. And
if they do a sleep tracking thing, the thing that I'll be interested to keep my eye on is like what sort of gymnastics they do to avoid like the very obvious battery life concern.
Yeah.
And then the one other thing that I've seen floating around, which I'm not sure we'll see next week, but I hope we see it eventually, is that there might be a new iPhone SE evenally.
Oh, you want the little form factor?
Yeah. So, the iPhone SE, if you don't remember, it was the iPhone 5 form factor. But then it was updated with some,
I think I had one
some
in
more
college,
guts.
actually.
And then
The white one.
They just discontinued it with. I think it was announced that it wasn't going to be getting iOS updates with the last revision of iOS.
That sounds
and I know a lot of people were like trying to snap up what remaining stock was available and like.
You just wanted a colorful iPhone SE?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be nice to see.
Why you just like the size of it?
Yeah, I mean, I am a lifelong Android user, and I don't expect that to change. But I like theoretically that somebody is making a high-quality, small smartphone. We'll have coverage of the actual event when it comes, so stay tuned. Tucker will be on the ground, getting hands-on, and we'll have all kinds of coverage about what happens over the course of the event, what's cool, and why it matters.
Yeah, let you guys know next week.